I am Ari Temkin on social at James Westling. You can get me on social at Ari Sports. By the way, we are not that far off from the Big 12 championship game at AT&T Stadium. John Pardee is the halftime performance. Kicks off at 11 a.m. Central on Saturday, December 6th at AT&T Stadium, and will be broadcasted on ABC. John is the Big 12's first country music headliner at its football championship. He'll be joined in the performance by the marching bands from both participating universities, which we saw last year and was incredible in terms of the performance. It'll be a party pit, a premium experience in front of the stage with tickets available to purchase. John's recent hit, Mr. Saturday Night, has been featured in a number of Big 12 football championship spots during game broadcast. Tickets for the 2025 Big 12 football championship are on sale exclusively now through SeatGeek. So go check that out and be part of the party pit. How do we get in there, James?
John Party Pit. I'm here for the party puns, and I want to be part of the party.
Arizona State won the Big 12 championship last year, beating Iowa State.
They partied.
They'll be taking on Texas Tech this weekend in Tempe in a game that features the dominant force of the Big 12 right now against the major surprise team of the Big 12 from last year that's trying to defend its Big 12 championship at Arizona State. Texas Tech at Arizona State, certainly a game that we had circled before the season started as being a big-time matchup. Last week, Arizona State took a little bit of the luster off of this matchup because they suffered their second loss of the season, first in conference play, this time to Utah, a team that blew them out basically from the outset. Jeff Sims really could do nothing in replacing Sam Leavitt, but it does look like Leavitt will be available and will start this week for Arizona State, as he is probable. Baron Morton is questionable, the quarterback for Texas Tech, who left the Kansas game early, giving way to Will Hammond, who struggled to throw the football but helped Texas Tech win the game in the second half with his legs. What stands out to you about this matchup?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the injury status of the quarterbacks, I think, is massive. In games in which Sam Leavitt starts the game, the last two seasons, Arizona State is 15-2. I mean, they're a different animal with him at quarterback. It's not a knock on Jeff Sims, but he's not Sam Leavitt. The games that Jeff Sims has been the starting quarterback, they've lost 2 in a row. Got smacked by Utah. Last year, remember, they went on the road and they lost at Cincinnati, the game that Sims started. So Arizona State is a completely different team with Sam Leavitt at quarterback. So I start there. That's huge for Arizona State. And then Texas Tech, if Baron Morton is not a go, and it is Will Hammond, do we see the Will Hammond that we saw in the second half against Utah, or do we get the Will Hammond that we saw against Kansas? Because that version of Will Hammond, I think, plays into the hands of Arizona State's style. They're very sound at stopping the run. They've given up some explosives in the passing game, but Will Hammond struggled to throw the football. He was more effective as a runner. So that's huge in my eyes, is the quarterback angle of this whole thing. And then the other thing that came to mind is just a hypothetical what-if situation. Because remember, last year the Big 12 had a team that started 7-0. We got 7 games into the season before Iowa State suffered their first loss. They cracked the top 10 for the first time in program history. They were off to a tremendous start. This year, if Texas Tech loses, if BYU, who's a 3.5-point dog at home against Utah, if Utah wins that game, then all of a sudden the Big 12 is without any undefeated teams. And we would come back on a Monday and look at the AP Top 25, and I think it would be a mess for the league, because the way voters are voting, Texas Tech would plummet, Utah would jump a few spots, BYU would plummet, and then your highest-ranked team is probably somewhere around 15 or so, which this time last year, remember, you had a team in the top 10. So from a league perspective, Texas Tech losing this football game wouldn't be a good thing. But it's a major positioning game, because you've got last year's Big 12 defending champ against this year's, the team that seems to be in the driver's seat for winning a Big 12 championship. So it's really, really an intriguing high-level matchup.
Yeah, and for Kenny Dillingham, here's what he said about what happened last week against Utah.
Not at all. That's an excuse. At the end of the day, the quarterback has nothing to do with moving people forward and backwards, has nothing to do with tackling. To say the emotional change, that's softness. If that's a reason for losing, then we're going to lose a lot of games here when I'm the head coach, if that's the culture we're creating. There are no excuses. Like, you get your butt kicked, come out here, you change something so you don't get the same result, because that's not who defines us. Like I said, unless we allow it to define us, how do you change it? You work harder. You practice more physical. It's not rocket science. You do the things you weren't good at. And unfortunately, when you weren't good last week at tackling, you have to tackle mid-season, which is not something you normally like to do. But I guess over time, I've allowed it get to a point where we have a game like that, which means we need a correction. And I think today was just a correction to get back on board in the right direction of how to build a program.
Well stated there from Dillingham, and I think you watch the game. I mean, I think people would make excuses to say, well, the team emotionally wasn't where it needed to be because Sam Levitt wasn't playing, and there's Dillingham basically saying, like, I hope I haven't created that culture. We should go with the same mentality. I don't know what this game would have looked like had the defense played better, but yeah, I mean, I think line one for the game was Sam Levitt didn't play, but the defense got absolutely gashed on the ground, and it started right away. I mean, I mentioned this a lot, but the first 4 drives of the game for Utah, 3 resulted in rushing touchdowns, and they rushed at 7 yards per carry, and this is a team that wants to run the football. So ultimately, they could not stop what they knew was coming.
And that is a problem. And I do, I get what Kenny Dillingham is saying about the physicality, because Utah was the more physical football team. Well, Utah has the best offensive line, arguably, in America. Texas Tech has a really good offensive line, so they will have to be better there. But I still do think the fact that Sam Levitt was not on the field in this football game had a huge impact. I mean, no disrespect to Jeff Sims, but he's not Sam Levitt. I mean, Sam Levitt is a Heisman-caliber quarterback. He was, on all the Heisman shortlists coming into the season. We saw what he did last year at the tail end. We saw him will his team from a large deficit against Mississippi State. He had already done that. And if Sam Levitt's on the football field, I think that a couple of early scores, the first 4 touchdowns for Utah, sure, that's not good for the Arizona State defense. But they didn't have that guy on offense that they felt like could get them back in the game. And Sam Levitt has proven already this season that he can be that guy. So I do think that it definitely had a role in this game. And it's going to be massive if he plays on Saturday against Texas Tech.
Does look like he's going to play in terms of Baron Morton and Skylar Gill-Howard, the interior defensive lineman for Texas Tech, who's been an absolute beast. Here's what Joey McGuire said this week about the status of both of those guys.
Yeah, so Barron's kind of they're both day-to-day. The difference between, I'll start with Barron. Barron's day-to-day, he feels a lot better than what he did after the Arkansas Pine Bluff game. And so we all know, I mean, I've said it a million times, and I don't know if there'll ever be a player like him, but that dude's the toughest kid I've ever coached. He's pretty, his pain tolerance and just toughness and care factor is really high. So he's day-to-day. We'll see how he feels. Skylar is a little bit different. Skylar, we'll know a lot more by Thursday. We're trying to get everything set up, and Mike and Crawford do a great job with this, but we want to send him to his ankle. We want to send him to an expert in Dallas, to see, how fast we can get him back and exactly what possibly, we need to do. And so he's going to be a little bit more questionable, like if he can go, and especially whenever depends on how far out that appointment is. Like if it could be Thursday, and so we'll see. Those, as far as kind of everybody else and that I can think of, I mean, we're football banged up. You're always going to have bumps and bruises and, not feel great. And then by Tuesday, you're feeling a lot better. I mean, Mike says it all the time, movement's medicine, and by the time they get to Tuesday and with the facilities we have to get guys to feel a lot better, they feel pretty good.
All right, so the designation officially from last night's availability report is questionable for Baron Morton. Skylar Gill-Howard is out. So regardless of what we hear from the appointment in Dallas, as McGuire mentioned there on Thursday, I think the more long-term prognosis is what we're inching towards. On the other side, it mentioned that Sam Levitt is probable. Here's what Joey McGuire said about the probability of Sam Levitt playing.
Yeah, I expect him to play, man. I mean, thought process to me was probably If he was really banged up, then you've got to go into Utah and, maybe, hey, let's get as healthy as we can, to play us. And so I expect him to play. I think he's really talented. He extends plays with his feet. He's got a really good arm. He's smart. I mean, he's a guy that's going to play on Sundays. Whenever you face guys like that, it's really tough. I think they have, one of the best receivers in the country. Extremely talented. He's got great ball skills. He high points the ball. It's like they have great chemistry. He always knows where, Tyson is. I mean, I was watching a play where he gets flushed against TCU and he just catches a phenomenal pass on the sideline. Really special. I think, they've got a really good tight end that's kind of been his security blanket at times, and he catches the ball well, number 7. And then they have it kind of like a Jacoby Williams, like our advanced scout at running back was really comparing Jacoby and their number 5. I mean, he's really good. I think, I could be wrong, but I think he's leading the Big 12 in rushing, or he's up there, top 1 or 2 or 3. So they're really good on offense. I expect Sam to play, and, man, he's probably fired up to play us.
Arizona State, James, is 114th in the country at sacks given up per game, 3 sacks per game on Sam Leavitt, which could have been, the Utah game may have done something to those numbers, but still, this was a team that was just at 1 last year and a big reason for their success. But even with Leavitt playing, I'd be curious what Texas Tech does to Tyson. They've done a really good job, Tech has, defensively with Pollock to make sure to lock up the opposition's best weapons. I mean, Emmanuel Henderson didn't do much for Kansas last week, and Tyson's a better player, but I think that's the battle here to watch is how does Arizona State defensively play them? Do they bail out to try to stop a run if they're being gashed by Utah last week and seeing what Tech did to Kansas? And then how's Jordan Tyson able to play against this Texas Tech defense?
And Texas Tech has a really underrated secondary, and their linebackers are really good in pass coverage with Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez. Those guys are all over the field. And Texas Tech has been so dominant that we are looking at this more from the can Arizona State hang angle.
Yeah.
And I do think that, getting punched in the mouth by Utah may have been the best thing to happen to Arizona State this season, because it forces them back to a reset and their identity of being tough and having leverage on both sides of the line of scrimmage and tempo. I mean, Utah dominated the trenches. They had over 200 yards rushing. Arizona State had 2.8 yards per carry. You mentioned the sacks. They got sacked 5 times. And Texas Tech is a team that leads the league in tackles for loss. So Arizona State, they know that they have to be nastier up front. They have to be more physical. And this could be a get-right game for them from that standpoint. But Texas Tech has so much strength and athleticism that Arizona State is going to have to be better. And it still might not be good enough. Now, if Arizona State offensively, if Sam Leavitt plays, because Jeff Sims is limited as a passer, okay, so teams can put 8 or 9 guys in the box and force him to beat them with his arm. With Sam Leavitt, that goes out the door. And in games in which Arizona State rushes for over 150 yards, they're 10-0 the last 2 years. That's a key number for them. They have to get the ground game going. Joey McGuire knows that, the Texas Tech coach. Texas Tech is going to be dialed in on that. But I see Arizona State's path is Sam Leavitt plays. There's a little bit of backyard football. He plays loose and free. He makes some scrambles on broken plays. He hits Tyson for a couple of explosives. And if Will Hammond's the guy for Texas Tech, we haven't seen Texas Tech have to play from behind this season. At any point, we've seen them have to hang on to leads, but they really haven't had this massive come-from-behind type game yet. So if Arizona State can get some early scores, it could be interesting.
All right, that's James Amari. This is Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today. On the way next, we'll talk with our buddy Joseph Duarte from the Houston Chronicle and preview the Houston-Arizona game, plus get some of his thoughts on Houston basketball preseason. That's all next here on Big 12 Today with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.